Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Diatone Taycan25. It does not come with the camera, but it does come with this orange mount. Got some new Mamba motors in here. They're 1404, 5000 kV. Cadix Baby Retail for your FPV camera. The all-in-one board down in there is the F411 with a 25 amp 4-in-1 ESC. Also tucked away in there is the Diatone Mamba TX400, which is a power switchable VTX up to 400 milliwatts. Got a Foxeer Lollipop antenna on it. TPU mount for a crossfire antenna. Also inside the tail section is a neat little receiver bay. If you use an RXSR, you can use a wiring harness and you don't even have to solder up your receiver. It does come with these foam bumpers that you can mount around here, but you have to take everything apart. We're gonna listen to it both ways. In the package you get some zip ties, a bunch of extra screws, a beeper. Oh, I found 2 more 7mm screws, some brief documentation on the parts, a frame assembly guide, and a spare set of colorful whoops. Or ducks, or prop guards, prop protection. It weighs 165.5 grams. To get under the 250 gram limit, you're gonna need to use a 4S 650 milliamp battery, which leaves us 7.5 grams to spare. I flew it on this Outline 850 milliamp 4S battery, which brings the weight up to 262 grams. Without the foam, 165.5 grams. With the foam, 176 grams. It also comes with this convenient carrying case. We have a pretty nice day, but it's not completely wind-free, and you'll be able to pick that up in the DVR when we get to that stage. Of course, I am using the Insta360 Go camera, which is going to cover up a lot of my piloting mistakes and make this look to be silky smooth. This is an FPV mode, not just the 5-minute recording, but the horizon is not locked. So it should stay smooth, but it isn't necessarily going to look awkward as far as the flight goes. It's not going to be truly locked or horizon. Those of you that are familiar with the Insta360 Go, you're probably familiar with that already. But the Insta360 Go has been a kind of a nice surprise, I think, to the FPV community, as they have really kind of taken notice of what FPV pilots are doing with the camera and then expanding on it. It does have a heat problem, though. That's one thing that I think in that small form factor, I don't know if they're going to be able to solve that or not. But as far as the Taycan25 goes, this style of flying I find challenging, and I have seen people make comments about this style of flying, you know, not being as skillful as other styles of flying, and I disagree. I like to go fast and whiz around and get close to stuff, maybe most notably inside the house with brushless whoops. But I find this to be an enjoyable, yet still very, very challenging. And I think the reason why I find it so challenging is not only you're trying to be super smooth on the sticks so that you don't have any camera oddities maybe that you have to cover up for later, either in post or the camera like the Insta360 Go may have to cover up for you. But also kind of thinking about where you're going well before you're even headed that direction, your flight lines. Of course, this is my space. I'm very familiar with it, but I still have to think a fair bit about it. We flew by the front side of the house there, Gary and Diane doing a little garage sale, just selling off those last few things before they head off and move closer to their kids who are having families of their own. We said goodbye to them, socially distanced, of course. The other day they did leave town for the last time. It was interesting because they had all their kids back, and kind of, because their kids all grew up in that home, so their kids came back to kind of, I guess, say goodbye to the house. Anywho, we got new neighbors coming in soon. I met them the other day. Seemed pretty cool. He's into RC trains, so maybe get to do something there sometime. But this sort of flying is, while it's challenging, this does do it well, in my opinion. I didn't retune it. I didn't tweak it. Like I showed you in the quick roll, I used the Insta360 Go and a little spare mount that I had laying around to connect to that orange mount that's on the top of the quad. And it flies very, very well. I didn't find I had any problems with it. I found that the TX400 had good range. One of the things that I kind of check for that stuff is when I circle the house. I can circle the house on 400 milliwatts. On 200 milliwatts, it gets pretty sketchy, but I thought this was good and clear. I would have gone around my neighbor's house, but of course they were out there with their garage sale, so I did not do that. This does have some carbon fiber. It's not all plastic. You may have missed that in the intro if you weren't eagle-eyed. There's carbon fiber that attaches the two whoops to each other, and then you have the center strips, which is carbon fiber. The top part being a solid, or the bottom plate being one piece, and the top plate being actually 3 different pieces. So you kind of have a stacking going on there. There's also a DJI version of this, so if you're interested in getting your HD footage right inside. I'm not sure how that footage looks with the camera positioning, although the camera mount does have a slider in it, so you can move your camera forward and back, something to note as well. So the camera in this format is well protected within that cage. And you'll notice when we get to the DVR, because of course this flight lasts longer than the Insta360 Go can record, that you can see a little bit of that cage. Actually, you can see quite a bit of the cage. Also, this is without the foam, as I showed it to you on the desk. We will listen to a sample of it with the foam. I think it flies better. I think it's more efficient, and it flies longer without the foam on it. Of course, that shouldn't be too much as a surprise. You decrease weight, you're going to get more flight time. But I thought the foam also made it sound different, and so I wanted to play both samples in the video as well. Of course, the foam might be needed depending upon the environment that you're going to fly in, whether it's got high art, maybe some furniture or some antiques that have been refinished or something of that nature that you want to protect. And so you may choose to have the foam, although it is time consuming in order to get that foam on and off. Now we have to roll into the DVR because the Insta360 Go has recorded its 5 minutes, and now we are going to just use the DVR, and you get to see the reception. You can also see the voltage. We're flashing. Oh, and I crashed. That's right. I forgot about this. I'm going to go pick it up, and we're going to set it down just to finish out the flight. We've set it down, and now we're going to take back off again. I forgot about the crash. As many times as I've watched this before I started recording, I decided to pick this one with the crash, and it is a proof of concept that I'm not so careful with these things that I don't at least have some crashes. I think people enjoy the crash reel, although I don't think I had more than 2 or 3 crashes or bumps, whatever you'd like to call them, with this particular quad. You can see we're well over 5 minutes. I showed the battery in the quick specs, and that is a battery that is relatively new, so with some more cycles we could see that the flight time change. Of course, with environment variables, I talk about this every time, elevation, humidity levels, wind, all those different things are going to have some impact, whether it's noticeable or not, on flight time and flight characteristics. You can see up in the top left hand corner, that's my throttle position, so I'm kind of flying or cruising at somewhere in the mid 40s on the throttle position, so we got lots of throttle left. I'm going to run this back to the bench here, and we should land right at about 3.5 volts per cell. Does it recover? Let's go back to the main screen. Oh, it's a little bit low. I think if we wait another moment or two, it gets up to like 3.45. So a touch slow, flight time of 5 minutes and 48 seconds. This was a flight where I put in the Insta360 Go. Actually, I turned on the Insta360 Go when I had it upside down, just not paying attention. And then when I put it in my mount, even though I had the lens at the top, it thought the orientation that I wanted was upside down. This can be a neat effect. Of course, you can do this in your editing program if that's the sort of thing you wanted to do. But I thought this was kind of interesting because when I first looked at this recording, I went, oh no, it's upside down. Now I'm going to have to change and process that before I can use it. But I'm going to go ahead and use this little segment as something to show you for the flight footage. This is with the foam. Just going to do a quick sample of how it sounds. I don't think it's really important to see how it flies. It's going to fly a little bit differently, but it's not going to be dramatic. Your flight time, of course, is going to go down because you have basically flat surfaces on the outside of the quad that has to fight the wind resistance or the wind if you get any through there. So we just wanted to give you an idea as I fly down into the neighbor's backyard, so you know when the flying spaces what you can get away with, so to speak. You know, people are going to notice you one way or another, but how far away will they notice you? These new props that we have on here aren't the quietest props that I've ever heard. I do think they're more quiet when the foam is not on the outside of the quad. I think that kind of creates maybe a trumpeting effect of that noise where it really kind of amplifies itself. But we're going to pass by here and we're going to wrap that up so we can go back to the desk and we can take a little finer look at a few things about the hardware and the construction of the quad itself. So I'm going to start with this picture, which is my setup picture. And I noticed that on the back end or on the tail end, they had this nice little TPU print. And I saw the wiring harness that came with it. So I thought, I'll just connect these two up. And so if you're flying FR Sky and you're going to use an RXSR, you can get this set up and running without even getting your soldering iron warm. So that's kind of a cool thing. You normally can do that with Diatone products, but it's not often that you find such a handy little mount in the tail section. You got to also see the pigtail for the ASMA connector that runs down to a UFL connector on that TX400 of Diatone's making. And then here, as we look at the top, I think sometimes it can be forgotten, but one of the kind of trademarks or hallmarks of Diatone is their branding, as well as their screws have this little bevel around the edge that are chromed out or silvered or not polished black. I'm not sure which one it is. But if you need to change these or you want to put the foam pads on, you've gonna give yourself some time and some patience. And if you're doing it by the manual method of turning the screws with your Hulk hands and doing all that manual labor, you're gonna need a break. I sat down while I was watching, I found on YouTube all the office pranks. It's like a 4-hour video. It's crazy. Anyway, so I was watching that while I undid all these screws, because what you don't have to undo these back two. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's on the top. 16 screws on the top. And then on the bottom, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 on the bottom. So that's a lot of screws. And that's going to take some time. Of course, if you're just doing some other sort of maintenance, you may only have to unscrew one of these. If you wanted to change these out to the other colored of prop guards, I think, as nearly as I can tell, you're going to have to desolder desolder the motors from the flight controller in order to replace one of these ducts. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I do like the fact that they use bigger motors. I think that brought some efficiency in flight time. You can see that the mount in here, so that they can use this for not only analog but also DJI. They've got the adapter on the Caddx Baby Ratel, which is a very good camera. I like that camera quite a bit. And I do appreciate the fact that they made their own mount here. This is not a print. This is some sort of hardened nylon. And there is another piece that goes to this that slides down in there and is flat across the top, but I can't find it in the moment. I actually haven't seen it around in a while. And now that I say that, I found it. Sometimes all you got to do is say you can't find something. So you can see it's got, maybe you can see. Let me get my camera to focus there. We got some Diatone branding on there. There you can see it real good. So you could stick a camera to it if that were to be in your fancy, or use this in some of the mount. They also include the hex tool that you need to drive that screw, which does come with it. So it is kind of a complete mounting solution. There is no battery strain relief on the lead. I don't really have a problem with it in this instance because this quad is designed to fly very slow. It's got a nice rubbery mat that's texturized here. As long as you get your strap down tight, I would think it would take quite a piloting error in order to have a crash so bad that you might get a battery ejection. But there's probably an opportunity, if you really wanted to zip tie the battery lead to this top section of the prop guard of the Whoop down here, so you could get some strain relief, but I don't think it's necessary in this particular case. Do note that we're open here on the bottom, so if you are landing in grass or you're taking off from grass, you want to make sure that it's a dry spot. I would always encourage you, if you're out in a field, to lay something down, anything, a notebook, a spiral notebook, a binder, a hay bale, whatever you can find to keep this up off the ground if the ground has any opportunity to being wet, because within a ½ inch or so we have electronic components, and when they're powered on, sometimes bad luck with just one droplet of water and it can fry out a component. So be careful about that. That's something that I would always recommend, is when you're taking off, especially with these inverted props, is to take off from a hard flat surface and then try to land on a hard flat surface. We don't want these props being obstructed and the motors trying to spin the prop. That causes voltage spikes and can be bad for ESCs. Some of you people that have been around the channel know my spiel. Be careful. Don't fly when your props are obstructed, otherwise you're asking for damage. Yeah, I like this. I think it's pretty nice. I think if I had my preference though, just because I'm lazy, I would probably go for the DJI version, because I do have the goggles and I do have the radio. So that would make things a little bit easier for me as far as being able to get the HD footage, but I would only get the HD version as long as the camera protection does not appear within the HD. I don't think it does because the HD cameras are bigger and longer. And if you can see down in there, let me zoom in. That is the slot that I mentioned previously where you can use it to back your camera up if you want more camera protection, or move it forward if you want to decrease the amount of camera protection, or put it flush with the front. Something else, when you have the foam on, see how it's got this cutout right here, this little notch? Both of them have that. Both of them have a little notch cut in. So when you put them back, make sure one of those notches is over here by your USB port. And you can, with an extra long nose on your USB cable, plug into that without having to take the foam or the whoop off. So you shouldn't need to disable that. Of course, if you have, no, I don't think it'll work. Well, no, I don't think so. I was thinking about a right angle adapter down in there. I don't think we can get it down in there. We'd probably end up doing some possible damage. So I think the best route is going to be to go right through this hoop down in through here and use an extra long nose USB cable. If you're not familiar with those, let me see if I can fish mine out here. This is one that I got with one of the Gear quads. They tend to ship the extra long nose, but I bought my first one off of Amazon after I asked about it, and someone here on the channel commented, oh, I found them over on Amazon. So this is the camera focus. This is the extra long nosed USB cable, and it can be purchased from Amazon, or you can get it anywhere that Gear products are sold, because I believe the USB for Gear products, Gear quads that is sold separately. Yeah, so, well, I'd probably prefer the DJI version because I'm lazy. Price is always important, so I'll have a link down in the video description if you want to go check out the current pricing. I see the analog version coming in right at about $160. That's US dollars, of course. The DJI version is coming in at $120 more than that, which isn't surprising. You add the Vista, even though it takes out the VTX and it takes out the camera, you're adding in the Vista, and it does show the pictures on the website do show the full-size DJI camera, not the Nebula camera, but be sure you go through the product list to make sure you're getting the camera that you do want if you're going for the DJI version. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.